Dear student, welcome back to the online history classes. As you know very well, due to the corona pandemic issues, our department is going to organized this particular online classes. As far as the history subject is concerned, you are already studied the chapters up to 4.6, different political dynasties, different religions and different historical aspects of the Indian history. Today, I am going to discuss on chapter 4.7 that deals with the three major dynasties that was ruled over India, that is Vardhanas, early Chalukyas and the Pallavas. In these three dynasties, Vardhanas were ruled over northern part of India, and the early Chalukyas, or otherwise called as the Badami Chalukyas, were ruled over Badami Chalukyas, as well as the Pallavas were ruled over the southern part of the Indian subcontinent, and they made their own contribution to the political as well as the cultural history of the Indian subcontinent. Dear students, among these three dynasties, my discussion is only on the Vardhana dynasty, and one of my other friend is going to discuss on the early Chalukyas and the Pallavas. So, my discussion and concentration is only on the Vardhanas. Dear student, as you know it well, in North India, in a different periods and times, we can see the emergence of a large number of political dynasties, who in fact made their own remarkable contribution to the political as well as the cultural history of the Indian subcontinent, and they had seen the political ups and downs in various periods and times. Among those dynasties, Guptas were the one such dynasty which played a significant role in establishing a strong and a powerful empire over North India, and they made a remarkable contribution to the political as well as the cultural history of the Indian cultural history of the India. By about 6th century or so, nearly about that, Guptas were lost their existence. There was a decline of the Gupta empire, and after the decline of the Gupta empire, we can see the development of a sort of political disunity in the North India. By taking that political disunity as an opportunity, we can see the emergence of a large number of independent states over North India, and they made a honest effort to put an end to the political disunity that was cropped up. Among those dynasties which came to power, one of the major dynasty was the Vardhana Dynasty. Dear students, the so called Vardhana Dynasty ruled over South India for about about some years. Was a dynasty, was a political dynasty founded by a person by name Pushyabhuti. In fact, Pushyabhuti was considered as the originator of the so called Vardhana Dynasty, and to that dynasty, the dynasty that was founded by Pushyabhuti, dynasty of the Pushyabhuti lineage, was been ruled by a number of rulers in different periods and times, rather chronologically. To that dynasty, we have a person by name Rajavardhana, who was called as the most prominent ruler of that particular dynasty. In fact, your discussion is mainly on Rajavardhana. In fact, the capital of the Vardhana dynasty was Taneshwar. So, Rajavardhana belonged to the Pushyabhuti lineage, ruled over Vardhana dynasty, and he made a remarkable contribution to the political as well as the cultural history of North India, and tried to break the political disunity that was cropped up in the North Indian subcontinent after the fall of the Gupta Empire. Now, what are the sources to know the history of the Vardana dynasty? As we studied in our previous chapters, without sources there is no history, because if there is no sources, then the historical events becomes legendary or imaginary. That is why we can understand or we can study the history only with the help of the sources. So, also in order to know the history, the political as well as the cultural history of the Vardana dynasty, we have sources, both archaeological as well as the literary sources. See, here there are three major sources which helps us to know the history of the Vardana political as well as the cultural history of the Vardana dynasty. So, one was Harshacharite, written by a scholar by name Pana, and we have one more travel account by name Siyuki, being composed by one of the traveller who visited India during the ruling period of Harshavardhana and Pulakeshin, like that, by name Huyen-sang, Chinese traveller by name Huyen-sang, who composed a popular work called as Siyuki, which also gives us the information about the political as well as the cultural history of the Vardana dynasty, which ruled over Taneshwar and North India. And we have a large number of copper plate inscriptions belong to the most prominent ruler of the Vardana dynasty by name Harshavardhana. So, with the help of these sources, maybe Harshacharita or that for that matter Siyuki or for that matter the copper plate inscription, we can know or we can understand the political as well as the cultural history of the Vardana dynasty and the contribution that they are made to build the political as well as the cultural history of the Indian subcontinent. As I told earlier, in this particular syllabus, there is a major reference is on Harshavardhana. Who was Harshavardhana? On what condition he ascended the throne? And what are the difficulties that was faced by him while ruling the state? What are his political achievements? What is the contribution that he was made to religion or his religious policies? And what are the contribution that was made by him to the field of literature or his literary contribution, that we are going to discuss. Dear students, Harshavardhana, one of the most prominent ruler of the Vardana dynasty, came to power somewhere in 606 CE. He was also called as Shiladitya. Shiladitya was his other name. Somewhere in 606 CE, he was came to power, and he was came to power with a sort of difficulty. I mean, he was not ascended the throne, something like this is not something like a bed of roses. He was came to the power with the with some difficulty. Now, what was the family background of Harshavardhana and how he came to power? For your information, see, Harshavardhana, the most prominent ruler of the Vardana dynasty, was a son of Prabhakara Vardhana and Yashomati. Underline Prabhakara Vardhana and Yashomati. That is, Prabhakara Vardhana was the father of Harshavardhana and Yashomati was the mother of Harshavardhana. So, Prabhakara Vardhana and Yashomati were the parents of Harshavardhana. See, these parents, that is Prabhakara Vardhana and Yashomati, these couples have three children. They had three children. Rajavardhana, the eldest one, Harshavardhana, two sons, Rajavardhana and Harshavardhana, and one daughter by name Rajasri. So, Prabhakara Vardhana and Yashomati, these couples have three children, Rajavardhana the eldest one, Harshavardhana the youngest one, and Rajasri the daughter. Among these three, see, Rajasri got married to Graverman, the ruler of Kannauj. That is quite natural. Always the ruling family, gives their daughters or whatever maybe, they always maintains the matrimonial relations with the other ruling families. That is quite very common. So, also the Rajasri, the sister of Harshavardhana, the daughter of Prabhakara Vardhana, have been got married to Graverman, the ruler of Kannauj. So, this is one major issue that we can see. And to the Prabhakara Vardhana and Yashomati, Harshavardhana was he was the second son. Eldest was Harshavardhana and then Rajavardhana, and the youngest was Harshavardhana. See, by about, as I told earlier, by about 606 CE, Harshavardhana came to power in a critical political condition. In a critical political condition, he came to power. So, it so happened that somewhere in 605, he lost his mother. His mother Yashomati committed sati, she died, and after that Rajasri, she was got married to Graverman. What happened, you know, the husband of Rajasri by name Graverman was been killed by Graverman, the ruler of Kannauj, that you have to remember, was been killed by Devagupta, the king of Malwa, and Rajasri was been kept in prison. She was imprisoned. By getting the news of that is the murder of Graverman and the imprisonment of Rajasri, by getting the news of that, Rajavardhana had proceeded to Kannauj to protect his sister. But in between that, Rajavardhana was been killed by Shashanka, the ruler of Bengal, that is Gauda Desha. So, here two events are happened. Number one, the Graverman, the husband of Rajasri, was been got killed by Devagupta of Malwa, and Rajasri was been got imprisoned at Kannauj, and Rajavardhana, the brother of Harshavardhana or the brother of Rajasri, who had gone to rescue Rajasri from the prison, was been murdered by Shashanka, the ruler of Bengal or the Gauda Desha. Under this painful condition, Harshavardhana came to power. One is the death of his brother-in-law and the imprisonment of his sister, and other is the death of his brother Rajavardhana. So, under this painful condition or difficult condition, in fact, Harshavardhana came to power somewhere in 606. So, immediately after coming to power or ascending the throne, in front of Harshavardhana, there are two challenges. Number one, to release Rajasri from the prison. This is one major issue that was in his front, and other was to take revenge against the death of his brother Rajavardhana. So, by taking this as a challenge, that is the release of Rajasri and revenge against revenge on the death of Rajavardhana, by taking that as a challenge, Harshavardhana came to power and involved himself in a political career and tried to protect the name and the fame of the Vardana dynasty. So, the political career of Harshavardhana started, or the political achievements of Harshavardhana started with the issue of the rescue of the Rajasri. So, these are all the political achievements. So, whatever the challenges that he had taken the challenges as an opportunity and converted those as his achievements. So, thereby he had successfully built a strong and a powerful state over North Indian subcontinent. So, what are the achievements of Harshavardhana in this particular respect? This is a major question that is there in your syllabus. What are the achievements for 5 marks? What are the achievements of Harshavardhana, like that? So, first important issue that I am going to discuss is on the rescue of Rajasri by Harshavardhana. As I told earlier, Rajashri was been got imprisoned at Kannauj. But what happened, you know, skillfully or rather planfully, Rajashri was been escaped from the prison to protect her prestige and honor like that, and she was went to the Vindhyan mountain, and Rajavardhana came to know of this, that is the escape of Rajashri from the prison, came to know of this. He had searched Rajashri with a lot of difficulty, and later he protected her from jumping into the fire because she already lost her husband. And by that, I mean, Harshavardhana successfully protected Rajashri and her state, that is Kannauj. So, after protecting Rajashri, Harshavardhana amalgamated or included the state of Kannauj ruled by Graverman into the Vardana state and made Kannauj as the second capital, because Thaneshwar was the first capital of that particular state. So, he made Kannauj as the second capital of the Vardana Dynasty. By that, he had provided a sort of justice to Rajashri as well as to the state of Graverman. That is one of the major achievement of Harshavardhana in this particular ground. So, by that, what I am trying to say, you know, by that achievement, Harshavardhana had successfully faced one of his challenge. And the second thing I already told, he has to take revenge against the death of his brother Rajavardhana. So, now come the turn of Harshavardhana. See, with the help of the ruler of Assam by name or Kamarupa or Assam by name Bhaskaravarman, Harshavardhana was attacked on the state of Shashanka. He had attacked on the state of Shashanka. Somehow he was politically weakened Shashanka, but he was failed to defeat Shashanka rather successfully. As long as Shashanka was alive, Harshavardhana was failed to defeat Shashanka rather completely. But he had taken a revenge against the death of his brother Rajavardhana by attacking on Shashanka. And it was after the death of Shashanka, this important point, it was after the death of Shashanka, Harshavardhana annexed almost all states ruled by Shashanka to his empire. See, that may be for that matter Orissa, that may be Magadha, that may be Odra, that may be Gauda Desha, that is Bengal. Whatever the territories earlier ruled by Shashanka, the ruler of Bengal or Gauda Desha, now been annexed by Harshavardhana, and same states are being brought out under the control of the Vardana state, and that is one other major political achievement as far as Harshavardhana was being taken into consideration. And the third major achievement of Harshavardhana was his attack on Devagupta, the ruler of Malwa, and he was successfully defeated, and he was also a person responsible for the murder of Graverman, Devagupta, the ruler of Malwa, and he was being defeated, and the state that was being ruled by Devagupta, the Malwa state, had been annexed into the Vardana state. That is one of the major achievement of Harshavardhana. There is a defeat of Devagupta, the ruler of Malwa. And after that, he was fought against Dhruvasena II, the ruler of Vallabi. Dhruvasena, the ruler of Vallabi. See here in the battle that was fought between Dhruvasena and Harshavardhana, Dhruvasena was defeated and he was chased up to Bharuch. And later, a friendly relation was established between two, whereby Harshavardhana gave his daughter in marriage to Dhruvasena. It is quite but common, because always either a war should end with the defeat of one ruler or the success of other ruler, or either it should end with the signing of an agreement, or it should end with some sort of a agreements also, I mean matrimonials also. Here in this case, after the defeat of Dhruvasena at the hands of Harshavardhana, Dhruvasena was agreed to formulate a friendly relation with Harshavardhana. As a result of that, Harshavardhana gave his daughter in marriage to Dhruvasena. A matrimonial relation was established between two. This is one more major achievement that we can see in this. And even along with that, in between that, see one of the record of Harshavardhana says that by about 612, in fact, Harshavardhana captured the Pancha Sindhus of Punjab, then Kannauj, Bihar and Orissa. Whatever the areas prevalent in the northern and eastern part of India have been successfully conquered by Harshavardhana at that ground. So he captured that, and Dhruvasena was being defeated. And after that, one more major political achievement of Harshavardhana was that he was fought against the ruler of Nepal, and he was defeated. And later Harshavardhana had collected a vast amount of tributes from the ruler of Nepal. So what I am trying to say, by all these political achievements, maybe Kannauj, maybe Bengal, for that matter Malwa or Vallabhi, or for that matter Nepal, by all these political achievements, Harshavardhana was successful in establishing his monopolistic control or superordinate political control over North India. As far as North India is being taken, was being taken into consideration at that time, there was no ruler who was in a position to question the power, authority and the prestige of Harshavardhana, and almost all rulers were accepted the political supremacy of the Harshavardhana at that time. By taking into consideration, once he had successfully established his political control over the northern part of Indian subcontinent, in commemoration of his political achievements, Harshavardhana called himself as Uttarapateshwara. There is a title for Harshavardhana as the Uttarapateshwara. Say, once he got successfully established his superordinate control over the northern part of Indian subcontinent, once he was emerged as unquestionable ruler of say North India, in fact Harshavardhana called himself as the Uttarapateshwara, and there is no North Indian states which remain out of the political control of Harshavardhana. This is one thing that you have to remember. That is, by all these political achievements up to Nepal, say, Harshavardhana was successful in establishing his political control over North India. In North, at that time, there is no places in North India left, unconquered by Harshavardhana. So after that, Harshavardhana tried to extend his political boundaries to the south, beyond river Narmada, South India. Once Harshavardhana tried to extend its political boundaries to southern part of the Indian subcontinent, that is beyond river Narmada, there fought a historic battle between Harshavardhana and the then ruler of South India, that is the ruler Pulakeshi II. belong to the early Chalukyan dynasty or the Badami Chalukyan dynasty. A historic battle was fought between North Indian ruler, as he was called, Uttarapateshwara as he was called, North Indian ruler Harshavardhana, and South Indian ruler Pulakeshi II, because at that time Pulakeshi was also emerged as a popular political leader of South India. So, historic battle was fought between Harshavardhana and Pulakeshi II. Since that battle was fought on the bank of river Narmada, that battle was called as the Narmada battle, fought in 634 CE, underline. That question may be asked for chronological order. So, a historic battle was fought between Harshavardhana and Pulakeshi II, and that battle was called as the Narmada battle. A first such a battle fought between battle fought between the North Indian as well as the South Indian ruler. The battle was called as the Narmada battle. So, in this battle, in fact, the historical reference of that particular battle was made in Ayole inscription of Pulakeshi, being composed by Ravi Kirti. And also Uyensang was also mentioned about that particular battle in his travel account Siyuki. But I am little bit brief. In the Narmada battle fought between, in fact, you can also get the reference of that in a next chapter also. In the Narmada battle that was fought between Pulakeshi II, somewhere in 634 CE, Pulakeshi II got victory over Harshavardhana. Harshavardhana was defeated by Pulakeshi II, and he was got the title as Parameshwara. And after the defeat of Harshavardhana at the hands of Pulakeshi, river Narmada was been it was been demarcated as a boundary line between the empire of Harshavardhana and empire of the Pulakeshi II. That is, the territories lies in the north of river Narmada is considered as, that was considered as the state of Harshavardhana, and the territories lies in the south of river Narmada was been considered as the state of Pulakeshi II. Such a agreement was signed between two, and Narmada was made as a boundary line between the state of Harshavardhana and the state of Pulakeshi II. So, Harshavardhana lost the battle, and Pulakeshi had got the title as Parameshwara. So, by all these political achievements, in fact, Harshavardhana was successful in establishing a powerful empire. So, by about 641 or so, Harshavardhana declared himself as the ruler of Magadha. By all these political achievements, he was, as I told earlier, he declared himself as a powerful ruler, and he had also been established a friendly relation with the foreign nations, foreign states. For example, he has exchanged the ambassadors with China, and he had laid the foundation for a powerful state. And his state is like this. Geographically, we can say in the south, his state was extended, or empire was extended up to the river Narmada in the south, and Himalayan mountain in the north. Then we have Punjab in the west, and we have the Bengal and Orissa in the east. So, it laid the foundation for a strong and a powerful empire in the North India, and made a remarkable contribution to the political, thereby he had what I can say, he had in fact put an end to the political disunity that was been cropped out in North India after the fall of the so called Gupta empire, like that. So, by all these political achievement, in fact, Harshavardhana was successfully, he was somewhat successful in establishing a sort of political control over the Indian subcontinent. And apart from this political achievement, Harshavardhana was also made his own contribution to the development of religion, and he was also made his own contribution to the field of literature. So, these are all political achievements of Harshavardhana. Apart from this, he has his own religious policy. Now, what was the religious policy of Harshavardhana? For your information, I am telling, in the beginning, Harshavardhana as well as his ancestors were the devotees of Lord Shiva. They were the followers of Shaivism. And later, Harshavardhana was being converted to, he embraced Buddhism. As you studied earlier, Ashoka was the first Indian ruler who, embraced Buddhism. Afterwards, Kanishka embraced Buddhism. And Harshavardhana was the third Indian ruler who was, who had given a royal patronage to the Buddhism, a powerful religion of India, Indian origin. See, after embracing Buddhism, Harshavardhana had undertook certain important measures like Ashoka and like Kanishka, not exactly like that. For the spread and the popularity of Buddhism, in his empire, in his state altogether. And what are the policies, in fact, followed by Harshavardhana for the spread of Buddhism? These important things. Number one, after embracing, say, Buddhist religion, Harshavardhana prevented animal sacrifice in his state, and he was also put a prohibition on the consumption of the non-vegetarian food. Because, for your information, I am telling you, and you already studied, Buddhism is there was one such religion which gave importance to the principle of non-injury or ahimsa. So, as a true believer of the principle of ahimsa, in fact, Harshavardhana he prevented the animal slaughter in his empire, the sacrifice of animal, and he was also been put a prohibition on the consumption of the non-vegetarian food. That is one thing. One of the major steps that was been taken by Harshavardhana for the spread of Buddhism. And apart from that, he had constructed stupas in prominent places of the Buddhist worship, Buddhist place of worship, that we can also see. One more measure that he had undertaken. Then he had punished the opponents of the Buddhism and the characterless people. Those people who were opposed to Buddhism were been seriously punished. And the characterless people, because for a person character is important, and they were being punished. There is one more thing that was taken over by Harshavardhana for that matter. And apart from that, he was brought the remains of the Buddha's teeth from the king of Kashmir, and same was placed in Kanauj, and a stupa was built over it. There is one more thing. There is a construction of stupas over the relics of Gautama Buddha. There is a major steps, maybe ahimsa for that matter, animal sacrifice for that matter, then the construction of the stupas for that matter, different place of Buddhism for that matter. Then we can also see the the punishment awarded to the enemies of Buddhism, then the construction of the stupa over the relics of Gautama Buddha. So, these are all the early measures that was taken over by Harshavardhana for the propagation and the popularity of throughout the state and among the people. And apart from that, the major contribution of Harshavardhana for the Buddhism was the convening of the religious assemblies. In fact, he had during his ruling period, he had convened 2 religious assemblies in his state, say at Kanauj and at Prayag or at Allahabad. Kanauj religious convention, and Prayag or Allahabad religious convention 643 C. So, he had convened two major religious assemblies. So, in the beginning he had convened the Buddhist religious council or assembly at a place called Kannauj, his second capital, Kannauj. See, the major purpose of, the aim of the convening this religious assembly was to conduct the religious debates or discussion and to felicitate Chinese traveler Huyen-tsang. So, with that two purpose, see, Harshavardhana convened the religious assembly at Kannauj. For your information, this assembly was presided over by, underline, this assembly was presided over by Huyen-tsang, the Chinese traveler Huyen-tsang presided over this particular assembly, and this assembly was went for about 23 days, being attended by nearly 20 different kings belong to different parts of India, nearly 3000 Buddhist scholars, I am sorry, 1000 scholars, nearly 3000 Buddhist monks, nearly say 3000 Brahmanas and Jains. So, with their participation, in fact, this religious assembly was somewhat successful. That was somewhat successful. And in this particular assembly, so discussion was being conducted on the Mahayana Buddhism under the leadership of Huyen-tsang. And at the end, in memory of that particular assembly, a golden statue of Buddha as tall as the king had been installed in the auditorium where the that religious assembly was being held, because Harshavardhana wanted to make this religious assembly somewhat memorable. That is why these steps are being undertaken. So, by through this particular assembly, he made a honest effort for the spread or propagation of Buddhism and its philosophies. And after that, he had also convened one more assembly, that is at Prayag or at Allahabad. This is something like a Mahamoksha Parishad. He convened that, comes once in 5 years. So, that was been convened by Harshavardhana at Prayag, that is Allahabad, in the 643 CE. And in this particular assembly, Huyen-tsang was being invited. Then this assembly was went for about 75 days. Discussions are being conducted about the religion and something like that. And at the end, in the assembly itself, the donations are being made to the people belong to different religions and like that. And at the end, there is a procession of the idol of Lord Buddha along with the idol of Surya and Shiva. Something like something like all religious conference like that. So, what I am trying to say, through Kannauj assembly as well as through Prayag assemblies, in fact, Harshavardhana tried to glorify the Buddhist religion and the Buddhist philosophy throughout his empire. And discussion, always discussion makes something, some philosophy as something perfect, like that. So, he had made like that. So, my only point is this: like Ashoka and like Kanishka, Harshavardhana embraced Buddhism, and like those rulers, that is Harshavardhana and Ashoka and Kanishka, Harshavardhana made an effort to spread the so called Buddhist religion throughout his state or empire. This is one more major achievement as far as his religious policy is being taken into consideration. And the third major point that I am going to discuss is on the literary contributions of Harshavardhana. Apart from political achievements, apart from his religious policies, Harshavardhana was also known to the history of India for the contribution that he was made to the field of literature. So, apart from a conqueror, a political leader, and a true lover of religion, Harshavardhana was made a remarkable contribution for the development of the field of literature, particularly Sanskrit literature. In fact, it was said that Harshavardhana himself was a scholar. He himself was a scholar. In fact, individually Harshavardhana wrote 3 major works in Sanskrit language. Underline, you have 3 major works that was composed by Harshavardhana in the Sanskrit language. Underline, Priyadarshika, Nagananda and Ratnavali. Priyadarshika, Nagananda and Ratnavali. See, these are the 3 important Sanskrit dramas, in fact composed by Harshavardhana in the Sanskrit language. You please underline, because there is a question on this for 2 marks. So, he himself wrote 3 major works. Apart from that, he had given a royal patronage to the scholars as well as the poets in his court. He himself was a scholar at one side. At another side, he had given encouragement to the scholars as well as the poets and literary people in his court. So, one of the scholar by name Bana, underline, wrote a famous Harshacharita, a biography of Harshavardhana. He wrote a famous what is to be called as Harshacharita, a biography of Harshavardhana. In fact, this is one more major question that may be asked for, match the following like that. So, that means apart from, so by composing this literature rather individually and by encouraging the scholars through their help, in fact, Harshavardhana played a significant role in upliftment of the language and literature in India during his administrative tenure. That is what I am trying to say. So, he himself wrote Priyadarshika, Nagananda and Ratnavali, 3 major works, and one of his poet who took patronage from Harshavardhana wrote the famous Harshacharita, a biography of Harshavardhana, and by these, remember, in fact, Harshavardhana was made a remarkable contribution to the development of language and literature. Apart from that, Harshavardhana was also the patron of education. He was also given encouragement to the development of education. Development of education. It was said that Harshavardhana, in fact, given lump sum donations to the University of Nalanda University, and thereby played a significant role in the development of educational system in India. So, these are all. So, one level we have the political achievement, we have the religious policies of Harshavardhana, where we have discussion on the Kannauj Assembly and Prayag Assembly. We have the contribution made by Harshavardhana to the field of literature, particularly Sanskrit literature, where he himself composed these 3 works, and his court poet Bana wrote these particular works. And by all these political, religious as well as the cultural achievement, I conclude Harshavardhana in fact played a significant role in establishing the political unity in India after the fall of Gupta empire, and thereby he was remembered as one of the remarkable political ruler of India. So, with that I will finish this particular discussion, and I will just take on the question and answer just. So, with reference to this particular chapter, in your textbook you have 7 questions for 1 mark and 2 questions for 2 marks and 1 question for 5 marks. Just I will read out that. So, first question is, who was the great ruler of the Vardana Dynasty, that you write as Rajavardhana. And the second question is on which was the capital of Rajavardhana, there you write Taneshwar. And third question was, who was the sister of Rajavardhana, there you write Rajasri. Then the third question is, fourth question is, who wrote Harshacharita, there you write Bana or Balmatta. Then the sixth question is, who presided over the Kannauj Assembly, that is Huyen that you are writing. Then when was the Buddhist council was Prayag was held, that you are writing in 643. Then 2 marks question, parents of Harshavardhana, you are writing as Prabhakaravardhana and Yashomati. Then we have one more 2 mark question, name any 2 important works of Harshavardhana. There you have 3 works, Pridashika, Nagananda and Ratnavali. There you have to write any 2. Out of 3 you have to write any 2. Then you have the 5 marks question, that is only 1 question, that is achievement of Harshavardhana, that you have to write all these points, that is political achievements, religious policies as well as the literary achievement. With that I will finish for the day. Thank you one and all the best.